What we will be featuring in this video is very much an oddity. You can tell it's a personal computer. By the video title, you'll know exactly what it is. Well, most of you have probably never seen one of these before, and for very good reason. Does that logo look familiar? Well, it should. Corel is most known for WordPerfect, that word processing suite that everybody used to use once upon a time, and I believe they still use it extensively in the legal field, but that nobody really uses anymore because Microsoft Word took over for it. But apparently, for a while, they branched out into system design, because that's what this is. Not just superficially there, it also appears that way on the software on the system unit itself. We'll take a look at that here in a few minutes. Doesn't really give many cues as to what exactly it is just on the front of the machine. It's a very barren beige box, but I'll tell you what. This entire machine is made out of solid stamped steel. You definitely will not see that anymore. Taking a look here, we can see a key lock. This was usually used to lock out the keyboard. In fact, I think that's really one of the only things that this did. Usually the keys are missing. I don't have the keys for this one. We have a reset switch, power LED, hard drive LED, and here's something you will not see anymore: turbo. What that was a feature that allowed you to slow down the CPU speed by inserting wait states and other trickery in order to get closer, applications that required slower clock speeds because they used the system timer to drive events. Games were notorious for that. They'd run way too fast. If your speed on the CPU was way too high, they'd be completely unplayable. One of the conditions for my taking this machine home was that I had to remove, there was a 5 1/4 inch floppy drive here that functioned. I had to remove that. I also had to remove the hard drive. We'll have a look at that in a second. I have put one of my own drives in here. This 5 1/4 inch drive here does not work. I will have to investigate to see if I can fix it. I believe I know what is wrong with it, but it's going to involve some pretty extensive surgery, and I may not be able to fix it. And of course, we have a 3 1/2 inch floppy right here. And here we are now at the back of the machine. This thing is impressively long. Every bit of 2 feet. Maybe even more than that. Looks like they never wrote that down. That's for the power supply back here, which is a standard AT type. It's not baby AT. So there's our serial number. FCC sticker there. 115 volts. You can see another thing that has disappeared from the PC. The inverse IEC connection for plugging in your monitor, so it could be controlled using the PC. Only had to have one power cord going to the wall, and that was very handy in some cases. There's a cooling fan there, which has a mesh over the top of it. There's a bevy of stickers over here. You can see here CSS model 386. Let's try and get that in focus. 110 volts, 50-60 hertz, 4.5 amps, single phase. There's a label here somebody stuck on it for, you can see a mouse, or it's one serial port and serial port 2. Notice that there is no 25-pin serial, which is odd. More stickers there. We get over here. You can see the expansion slots. There are 8 of them total, I believe. I should probably recount those. Yeah, there are 8 expansion slots. Well, mostly. We'll actually take the cover off and have a look there. I've got 2 things installed here. We can see the VGA card with dip switches, as well as a sound card. And there, of course, is the keyboard port, the old AT 5-pin DIN style connection. Alright, I think it's time to take the cover off. There are 4 screws, 1, 2, 3, and 4 that need to come off, and the thing slides forward. one thing I forgot to mention is the presence of this, which is just got a wire which goes into the back of the machine there. You may have seen it. You're shouting at your screen, "What's that for?" Well, this is what it goes to. There's no real information. Looks like it does. This sticker just conveys voltage information. Plus 12, minus 12 volts and ground. So I don't know what that would have been used for. Okay, we are now inside the machine, and we can have a look at the magic elixir inside. Magic elixir is definitely the word for it. Here's the hard drive, 120 megabytes Corner Peripherals drive, again from my own collection. So you've seen this drive before. This 3.5-inch drive likely is not original to the machine, and we can see that here. It looks like they did not install a proper upgrade kit, rather they changed the floppy drive cable. A proper upgrade kit would have kept the original 2-drive card edge style connection, but would have had an adapter to go from the card edge to the pins that the 3.5-inch floppy needs. Or perhaps maybe this was original to the machine, I don't know. It could be either way in a 386. Although being as though this machine is from 1989 or early 1990, based on some of the date codes I've seen on things in here, well, maybe not. Having said that, the 5.25-inch floppy drive's card edge connector is visible right there, as maybe is the power. Actually, the power is hidden. That floppy drive does not work. You plug it in and it buzzes rather loudly, so the head stack is getting caught up on something. You can see here's a power supply. 3UI Power Technology Incorporated, PA4201-2, 200 watt total output on that, and it is a full-size AT power supply. Here's some grafting. That's the that all goes to the serial port that I showed you earlier. Take a look at this board. This thing spans almost the entire length of the machine. That's a pretty big board. Actually, it's a very big board. This was before the days of integration. Let me get a light and we'll have a closer look at some of the circuitry. Okay, I got my light out. Hopefully I'm not blinding the camera entirely. So you can have a look at what's going on inside here. Obviously, this goes without saying, should be no surprise, the system is ISA through and through. There's a couple of 8-bit slots, you can see one example right there, and most of it's 16-bit, except for these two slots here, which you may or may not be able to read on the board, but it says, special 32-bit memory slot. Do not insert standard cards in these slots. There's two of them. And it looks like this is actually an upgrade RAM card, Turbo RAM 386. The system has a total of 8 megabytes of onboard memory, but you'll notice, not only is there a lot of supporting circuitry, but this is not SIMs. They're not DIMMs, certainly. This is the old DIP, or dual inline package, individual chip style memory. Very odd to see that in a 386. But again, we're talking about a very early 386 here. It isn't an SX. You can see the CPU here. It's an Intel 386DX33, 33 megahertz in speed, of course. And right beside that, we have an Intel 82385, 33 megahertz cache controller. So this thing has got a lot of cache. I mean, look at all these chips here. I'm not sure if all of them are cache, especially these Texas Instruments modules, but some of them are definitely labeled cache. If you go down here, that one's labeled cache. That one's cache. So there are a lot of cache modules on here, and that 82385 is responsible for it, although interestingly the motherboard calls it an 80385. Which kind of threw me through a loop there. I thought that maybe it was some kind of a memory controller, and I was trying to look it up and couldn't find anything. But I guess now I know what it actually is. CSS 80386-33. Interestingly though, math coprocessor is installed, but it's a 25 megahertz part. Now I had always thought that the math coprocessor had to be matched to the CPU speed that you had. I guess not, because it passes whatever test this thing throws at it. So I'm not sure how that 25 megahertz 387 is working, other than by virtue of the fact that it's being overclocked. And I don't know about you, but I don't really feel too keen on having my floating point unit overclocked, but I guess that's just me. You can see a couple other interesting things here. This is very interesting. Check out those chips there. Those all comprise the BIOS on this machine, which is an award BIOS, which again is a very interesting choice. I don't think I've seen an award BIOS as old as this. Until now, of course. Speaking of things that you will not see anymore, you probably will not be able to read any of the markings on this chip, this card, but this is a Western Digital video card. Yes, that's right, the same Western Digital that manufactures hard drives today. At one point they had branched into video cards. I believe they sold that off to Promise Technology, or it came from Promise Technology, I can't really remember. Beside that, of course, is the SoundBlaster. That's a SoundBlaster 16 3D or something like that. I don't really remember. It's just a random 16-bit ISA sound card that I found in a storage bin that I went ahead and put in here. Here's something, again, you won't really see because there's a lot of integration these days. But back when this thing was made, there was nothing on the board. There was the keyboard controller, and that was pretty much it. I think this one actually also has serial ports, but a lot of boards didn't even have serial ports on them. The serial ports were driven by these multiple I/O controllers. This one, of course, is for the floppy drive and the hard drive. It's a standard IDE type, which is good, because there are a couple of these machines at work that have the ST506 interface, and we're trying our best to try and get those out of there. So we might see some ST506 stuff in recent times, or in future times. You'll have to forgive me. It is rather late, as you can probably tell. Actually, I didn't even really need to zoom in on those. You have the time of the time on your screen. Anyway, we can see under here, maybe, there's a connection for an external battery right there, behind the keyboard port. But you wouldn't even really need it, because this uses a Dallas DS1287 clock module. And not only that, but the module is socketed. So you could very easily replace that. There's some more supporting circuitry down there. It looks like a VLSI chipset of some description and a PLCC socket, which is interesting. Usually those were soldered to the board. I guess not in this case. I only see one. Well, there's an SIS chip down there. Very interesting. I'm discovering this as I go, because I haven't really taken a good look at this board. So I know that there are a couple of things to look for, but I don't know everything. It's definitely very neat to come in and have a look here. The other thing that I was going to mention is that the board mentions here, if we can get some focus on this, maybe, possibly, I don't know. That's probably about as good as it's going to get. But it says Cache-386-25/33 motherboard. Copyright CSS Labs Inc. 1990. So I guess that really points this as having been manufactured in 1990. I do see another clock crystal back there that might be for the 25 megahertz speed. I don't know. I can't read it from here, and I'm not pulling the hard drive out just so I can check that. Okay, so I believe that's pretty much it for the hardware overview. There's not much else that I can think of to show you other than maybe the front panel connections. But again, there's not really much to see. It's pretty standard stuff. Although the one thing that's curiously missing from this is a turbo switch. And it looks like instead of, doing this in software, the designers would have you remove the case cover and pull out a jumper to put this thing in slow speed mode. Right now it's jumped So it's in the turbo mode, as we'll see here. Maybe there is a key combination, maybe there is not. I'll have to find out for you. But I think it is time that we button this thing up and power it up. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. If you have a look here, this machine uses a rail system. You see these little black rails that are the drive screws into, and these slide into the system. And it uses these little things as locks. Not the best system in the world, but I've certainly seen a lot worse. I know a lot of the younger crowd are probably looking at this going, huh? Where's the 3.5-inch drive bays? 1990, yeah, this predates that. So, no 3.5-inch bays for you. You had to use 5.25-inch bays and adapters. They may have even intended for you to use a 5.25-inch hard drive. Although what interface it would have used is anybody's guess. Okay, got her all hooked up. My lovely IBM Model M keyboard. And a very period correct monitor, I tell you what. Power switch is on the side. I did not point that out. I neglected to do it because I'm used to seeing these on systems like this, but some of the younger crowd might actually not be. That was a common thing when this system was made. Of course, you won't really see that anymore. When this system was made, it was uncommon to have it on the front. So let's go ahead and fire it up. So you can see, works just fine. 386 modular BIOS. Copyright 1990 award. Corel Systems. Control-Alt-Escape to get into setup. Check out that setup utility. There was a time when this really used to be this simple. You can see here, this is definitely not Y2K compliant at all. I could put anything I wanted to in here. It's 12.6. You can see there. Oops. Let's get some focus. You could see I could put just about anything in this that I wanted to. So I could probably put 1233.18 in there if I really wanted to, but it won't actually accept it. But you have to do that yourself. You'll notice it will not accept 4-digit years. So this is not Y2K compliant. Of course it is 1256. I'll go ahead and put in 0, what is it? 057, sure. I suppose if you don't follow their format, it'll just reject it. You can see diskette 1 there as a 1.4 megabyte, 1.44 actually. Diskette 2 is not installed. Eventually I do plan to put a 5.25 inch floppy drive in this. Disk 1, 120 megabytes, type 49, which is a user type. CSS parameters here, which are pretty standard. Your cylinders, head sectors. You get write precompensation as well, which is usually 0. Or 65535 on some systems, or -1 on some still. Landing zone is usually the last cylinder on the drive, so that's how I've got it put in there. We do not have a second drive. EGA, VGA on the video, which is pretty normal. Well, that's what it is. Halt on all errors. Speed select. This is for your turbo function. So you can either choose no change, which goes with what the motherboard says. You can set it to low or set it to high. And of course you got your locks as well. It does have some semblance of security. So I haven't really changed much, but I did change the date and time. F10 records changes. You can turn the color on or off with F2 if you wanted to. F1 will just simply exit. Push F10. You press F5 to confirm update. The system will restart itself. Pause the video if you want to see any of that power on self-test details. The only thing I'm going to mention is that it appears as though the CMOS battery is bad, which isn't really much of a surprise. So we can see there, booting MS-DOS. Let's look at the hard drive LED. The mouse is not responding. Well, that would be because I don't actually have a mouse plugged in. I don't believe I can actually run any of these because the drive was formatted under MS-DOS 6.22, but the actual software itself is from DOS 5, so you can't actually run it. There are a few things we can run, though, if I can actually type correctly, such as the Microsoft Diagnostics. Version 2.0, which again you won't see very often. Usually you'll see 2.11. So you can see here, CC386 modular BIOS, PCAT, there's our BIOS copyright date. We have the 386 and the 387. It is detecting it. I will have to see if I can find a program that will test the math coprocessor, make sure it's actually working. Enhanced keyboard. ISA, of course. There's our memory. There's a memory map. Let's go ahead and exit out of here. We can see 640, and it's got 8 megabytes of onboard memory total. Here's our VGA information. You can see Western Digital. Doesn't tell us any model information, unfortunately, but again, it's from 1989. Did not come with the system. The system originally had a Trident card in it, but I wanted the Western Digital because, to be quite honest with you, I'm not a fan of Trident video cards. So, and the one that was installed in here had a couple of issues as well. The video was all staticky, messy. I don't really know what the deal was. Sometimes it wasn't, but most of the time it was. Probably a ground loop problem somewhere in the machine. No other adapters. We have our disk drives here. See A and C. Just as we should. A lot of data on this drive. I will be erasing it because I saved everything. Just for my own perusal, really. So, we can have a look here. There's definitely quite a few things here. I'm going to get a tripod out and we'll have a look at some of this stuff. Well, I think I've put something into a loop by just running random programs, but it does allow me to demonstrate something. You ever wonder what that pause button on your keyboard does? There was a time when it actually did pause stuff. Of course, it's not immediately obvious how you would unpause something, because you push pause, and nothing really happens. Turns out, push the control key. But it looks like this isn't really going to come back, so I'm going to Control-Alt-Delete on that. I do apologize if the focus is a little shoddy. There's not much I can do with this camcorder. This seems to be as good as the focus is going to get, so. Unfortunately, there really isn't much else that I can do, other than maybe using a different camcorder. So we'll go back here. We'll have a look. I didn't look through all of the folders. We have a zip. We have QBasic. Which you can go ahead and have a look at here, possibly. Looks like, not really sure what that one does. Probably, well, that might be, I might expect some kind of a program. There was a time.bas file here. I don't know, I wanted to run that. You can go ahead and give this one a shot. So if we go ahead and push start here, you can go ahead and just see that's what we get out of it. Now, I can't remember how to break out of these. Hopefully Control C does it. Nope. Again, the pause key does that. Just it didn't unpause. Oh, okay. Oh, Control Alt Delete seems to get me out of it. So we can just get out of that. So we'll go over here. We have some cheap GPIB stuff. ACLT Win probably requires Windows. A lot of this stuff requires Windows. So we can go to zip directory. Have a look at what's in there. Looks like just pkzip. Cellhack.zip. Go ahead and continue to have a look here as I knock the camera all over the place. Telex, ECR, LADDE. I don't know what a lot of this stuff does because I haven't really been trained on a lot of the equipment that's in there. But we do have Windows. It's Windows 3.1, as you might expect to find on something like this. Unfortunately, I don't have a mouse. Should have been really handy. ACLT is AutoCAD. Probably should have known that. And have a look at the About. You can see it's just regular Windows 3.1. It's not really anything fancy there. It's not even Windows for Workgroups. File Manager, like I said, there's a lot of files on this machine. A lot of stuff in the temp folder from 1995, no less. Got a whole bunch of 95s. Well, they could be from 95. They could actually be a little bit newer than that because, like I said, the CMOS battery is dead, and I really doubt anybody ever said it. So. You just go ahead and have a look here. Yeah, a lot of this seems to have been done in 95, if those dates are to be trusted. 12/4/8. Yeah, that's a great date, you know? Almost makes you wonder what the deal was. AutoCAD. Ooh, 1989. 1999, that's probably correct. Explode.com. That's interesting. DOS folder 93. 1980. Yeah, I don't think so. 92. Just having. I'm not going to open any of these files. Not for you guys anyway. I'm just having a look at some dates here. 80. Yeah, I don't think so. 1994, 93. 97. This gives us something of an idea as to when it... Oh, I went back all the way up to the beginning again. 94, 95, 93, 94, 96. So we could get something of an idea as to when this machine was set up. Maybe not so much when it was last used, but certainly when it was set up. We're going to have a look in here. We have a GPIB control, but that's pretty much it. Color. Somebody has set it to the blues. You'll notice that this is rather small when you compare it to a lot of... Because this is a 1280 by 1024 native resolution panel. But you'll notice how small everything appears. Well, there's a good reason for that. If we go into Windows Setup, we will notice this thing actually has the Super VGA driver installed. It's still, unfortunately, only 16 colors, but it does have the SVGA driver. So we are running at 800 by 600, which is what SVGA actually is, by the way. Some of you youngins who might think it means something else. Oops. Somebody put Notepad on your main. Oops, that wasn't what I wanted to do. Could go over to the clock here, which is correct. It's actually working as it should. I don't remember how to do it for these. Oh, I don't remember any of my keyboard shortcuts, which is not good. I should remember that. So there's AutoCAD, which I've now just brought up, and I probably will not be able to bring it back down. Control Escape is for the Task Manager. I know Control Tab switches between these. Play some Minesweeper. I think this video is long enough already. We're already up at like 36 minutes, and I think the unedited footage is probably going to be up near half an hour at least. So, I don't want to really bore you. My plan eventually for this machine is to maybe install Windows 3.0 on it. Not 3.1, but 3.0. DOS and Windows 3.0, so I can have an actual machine that was around when Windows 3.0 would have been, you know, period correct hardware, as opposed to shoehorning it on this Pentium MMX over here, the Dell Latitude LM, and then I can upgrade that Latitude LM to Windows 3.1, which will hopefully be a lot more better supported. Well, I could just put Windows 95 back on it. Anyway, that's way besides the point. We go ahead, we can get out of here, go back out to DOS. One thing I wanted to see, can you break into system setup on this thing? And actually, the other thing I wanted to see, is there a key combination that will switch this thing into slow mode? Usually it was Control-Alt+. Yep, there we go. Control-Alt- takes it into turbo mode. And of course, to get back into it, push Control+, Control-Alt+, and that would be on the number pad. Interestingly, oops, if we go over here onto the system, in slow mode, you will note that we have a box cursor, but if we put it back into fast mode, we go back to the regular cursor. The other thing I want to see is, what is the keyboard combination to get into system setup? Now, this is something you can't do. And I probably won't be able to do it here because I think I'm running in protected mode. If you were running in strict real mode DOS, it is no XMS, nothing like EMM386, or anything like that, no TSR programs that would put the CPU into protected mode, you could break into system setup. Now, the key combination for doing so could be any number of different things. Obviously, it won't be Control-Alt-Delete, but Control-Enter is a common one. But I guess that's not for this one. Control-Alt-Escape is another common one. Not for this one. I guess you can't do it on this particular system, which is fine. So anyway, that's pretty much it. I can't think of anything else to share with you. Eventually we will give this thing the time of day that it deserves, but right now it's 1:15 in the morning. I need to get ready to get to bed so I can get to work tomorrow, and maybe even get a few more machines, although I don't know if I'll be able to get anything out of there tomorrow. So anyway, thank you for watching. If you have any comments, feel free to leave them down below. And this is CP666 signing off, and I hope to see you next time. Till then.